Okay, here we're going to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really cool review for you from a newer brand called Echo Neutra. Now they're a Swiss made brand which features Italian design, and they're basically a newer microbrand that are all about combining manufacturing, design, form and function, and utility and emotion. Now this particular watch is a chronograph, some key common characteristics and design language when you're looking for a chronograph. Of course, you're going to see those external pushers that activate timing functions. There'll be multiple subdials to measure elapsed time, often featuring additional scales depending on the subgenre. Now, this is their Cortina 1956, which is the white dial, and it is a hand-wound Big Crown Chronograph, designed with a vintage style and dedicated to the first Olympic Games held in Cortina di Ampezzo back in 1956. And I think it's quite a looker, guys. I've had my eye on this brand for quite a while, and luckily for me, I was able to make a connection with them and get them to send this piece in. I do have it on an aftermarket NATO strap from Mora NATOs, and the reason why is because mainly the straps that came with the watch are a little bit short for my 7¼ inch wrist, but also the fact that this thing is relatively thin for a mechanical chronograph, and a lot of that has to do with of course them choosing a hand wound movement without an automatic rotor, which means that they were able to cut down some of the thickness there. It actually fits really well on a NATO, and that's something that's very tough for me to find these days. So I did want to share that with you guys because I know a lot of people love that nylon NATO look, but it's tough on chronographs because they're typically pretty big, thick, and bulky. In this case, I think we found something very special. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, now first things first, check out these. I actually really love the look of these, so that's why I was kind of bummed that they were just a tad short for my particular wrist size application. But look at the fit and finish on the milling and the brushing and polish transition there on this buckle. I really like, the mixture of the stitched fabric and then with the leather underlining. Very nice. I like the protected holes. And I think, honestly, it's a very handsome strap. And it's very nice. And then on the other side of the coin, let's go ahead and show you guys this really nice, very, very supple leather strap. My goodness, this thing is really beautiful. And as you can tell, also that really nicely milled, nicely finished. Look at that brushed, polished transitions. This is quite a handsome buckle. Very, very nice. And I think the color does set off really well to make it feel a little bit more vintageized with that. But hey, let's get to the main event here. Bam, check that out. And I do have it on a strap. And some of you might be just looking at this thinking, oh my gosh, that's way too thick. Well, it's not. Believe me, I've worn this and I really, really do enjoy it. Even with a traditional kind of dual pass NATO, and even being a slightly thicker NATO, considering the fact that it's a more premium one, this really fits wonderfully. And honestly, it has great wrist presence. It's very, very handsome. Guys, look at that dial. Holy smokes. You got mechanical chronograph action. Very nice. All right, so let's get into some of the details here. So essentially, this is a 40mm diameter by a 14.1mm height, and that, of course, is not including this beautiful, oh my gosh, this is one of the top 5 domed sapphires I've just ever seen in real life. This thing is gorgeous. It has just the right amount of distortion and play, and the level of the anti-reflective coating on there is so beautiful. You can see those outer hues, little violets and blue flares will just hit that crystal. Oh man, I dig it. So it is also 46 millimeters lug to lug. It's made out of 316L stainless steel. It's brushed and polished. It has these really beautiful, look at those bevels. Oh my, yes. That is quite handsome. So really beautifully done from a fit and finish standpoint. Very, very impressive. Oh yeah, and did I mention this thing's like 1,500 bucks? So $1,540. That's 1,540 bucks, which is pretty impressive considering all that you're getting. Swiss made mechanical chronograph, sapphire crystal, also a ceramic bezel, which I feel like they don't even really advertise, but man, oh yeah, and the ceramic bezel is actually loomed, which is even more outstanding, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys when we get to the loom shot. But yeah, this thing's gorgeous. It has these touches, these fine touches and features, like that beautiful box dome sapphire, and then also that beautifully glossy and finely executed bezel insert. My goodness, it is gorgeous. So this bezel has a really, really beautiful shape to it. If you look at it from the side, it just has that nice, oh, look at the contours, look at the high luster polish there. Very, very beautiful. Whew. It is a looker. Also signed crown, beautifully polished pushers, of course. Very, very handsome. You can't see the movement inside because it is a closed case back. But as you can see, there you go. Not too much there. Nice, deep, kind of debossed 1956, and then accompanied by some nice etching there. Really beautifully done, and again, very manageable on the wrist, which is beautiful for a mechanical chronograph. Now, the movement that is inside, though, is your Sellita SW5110, or just 510M BHB elaborate grade, and it's beautiful, and it's hand wound. It's not automatic, so there will be no rotor whirring around or anything like that. And then when you get to the dial, although they are printed indices and whatnot, I think it's very fitting with the design of the watch. The very graphically, the good punch that they offer. I think it looks great. The lug width is 20 millimeters, so it fits great on this particular and many other NATO straps, and many other straps for that matter. If you wanted to put on kind of a perforated rally strap, also very, very handsome in this case. The dial is beautifully matte there, so you really just kind of keep an eye on the legibility and all of the measures that are on there, which really, really stand out. And then it also has 100 meters of water resistance. The crown is not screwed down, but the crown is super, super secure. Almost to the point of you have to kind of have you have to come at pulling the crown out when you are setting the time with just a little bit of sense of purpose. You're not going to accidentally pull the crown out by any means. It's very, very nice, done to a very tight tolerance, which does inspire a lot of extra just confidence when it comes to water resistance. So it also does come with a bunch of different strap options. These are just the two that kind of came with the unit that I'm reviewing. In terms of this very nice, I dig this for the more modern look. I think it's gorgeous. I just wish it was, a couple millimeters longer. And then for the more vintageized appeal, I feel like, man, the color combination on here. I mean, this isn't great against my skin, so it's not something I would typically look for. But against that dial, my word, look at that. So Very nice from that standpoint, but I did want to feature it on a NATO just because that's something I find to be very special. So with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist so you guys can see how it looks attached with this NATO strap. All right, guys, as you can see on my 7¼ inch wrist, wow. Look at that. Of course, now it being on the NATO strap with that hardware on either end, it does elongate the visual weight a little bit. But my goodness, even on the wrist, look at that. That's not sitting too high off of the wrist, I have to say. And of course, whenever you do have something on a NATO, it does elevate it slightly off of the wrist, which does mean that you're going to get a little bit more clearance for some of the contours. But I think it does have a nice undercut there, as you can see right at the edge of the case. Oh man, this thing is a looker. And it's outstanding. It really does feel great on wrist, looks very handsome, and fits the bill in a lot of ways without looking like a, you know, an homage of any type. It is a Panda dial. It does have a bit of red text, you know, and some red touches there and accents, but it's nothing that's pulling directly from any other reference. I think it looks really great. And again, it's a 40mm diameter, guys. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, it's really big. It's not. I mean, it's a chronograph, so it has to be relatively large. But I think they do a great job with the proportions. This looks fantastic in person. Does not seem oversized at all. And really just hits the mark. Actually, you know what would probably really look good on too, is this Artem sailcloth that I recently reviewed. So it's a little bit longer. So if we just take a look at, I guess, to see, it's all it takes is just a little bit more length there, and in here you can see this is the extra large length, and it's just that little bit extra bit of length that helps it a lot on when it comes to on the wrist and just feeling comfortable and having enough tongue and play through those holes. But yeah, I bet that would look epic as well, tying in to more of the vintageized aesthetic. So you know what, why don't we even try to put it on that so you guys can get a look at how flat it wears without having the extra material underneath. All right, check that out, guys. Even flatter on the wrist now. You can see it wears thin, man. It really does. Of course, it does have that beautifully boxed dome sapphire, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. My gosh, the way that it plays off of that flat and just so finely executed ceramic bezel insert. It looks fantastic. I'm really digging this, guys. As you can see, again, it's not something that appears oversized or undersized. Really hits that sweet spot right there at 40mm. And then I just have to admit that, yeah, this thing looks fantastic. Ooh, man. So yeah, and you can see there again now, since it's on a two-piece strap here, and you can see, you know, I think it fits really nice and gives me a little bit more comfort by having just a little bit of tongue here to work through the tang buckle. It just gives me a little bit more confidence on there in terms of on the wrist. But man, this thing looks fantastic. Look at that. Look at that lay, bro. That lay on the wrist is fantastic. And this is, you know, again, I thought it was still quite wearable, even on a NATO where you got two pieces of material running underneath. But when you're using a two-piece strap, my goodness, this thing lays very beautifully. And again, guys, this isn't some, you know, vintage three-hander. This is a, you know, modern mechanical chronograph. And I think it represents itself well. Is it a little? All right. Yeah, sorry. I don't know if the lens is playing tricks on me or what, but man, this thing's gorgeous. So with that said, guys, let's actually get this piece laid out for some nice loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and hit the lights here. Oh, as you can see, wow, BGW9 doing its job fantastically, really. And I dig it. You can even see there's even little touches on that chronograph seconds hand, which I did stop while I was setting up, just so you guys could pay a little bit more attention to the finer details. And even, oh, look at that. Just a hint of light, still very, very legible there, very transitional lighting. The loom looks great, not expected at all for this piece, you know, or really any chronograph do I think, oh wow, this thing's gonna be really sweet on the loom end. But this one does have really, really great loom, I have to say. Again, nothing, it's not crazy, but it's just so surprising and pleasantly. Look at that blue loom's gorgeous. I mean, it just works for me. I'm really, really digging it. And one thing I like to do, of course, is work in this low light transition, because you're not always going to be, you know, out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to be coming in and out of a building, you know, maybe walking underneath an overhang, or maybe even getting in some very, you know, high contrast, harsh lighting situations, as you'll see here. And typically that would reveal any types of imperfections. And in this case, you can see it just highlights really just how gorgeously finished this timepiece is, the way the light glides and dances over that gorgeous box dome sapphire. The light just, ooh. Oh man, this is a very, very handsome looking, whoa. There you go. Now the camera doesn't even want to focus on it. There we go. So with that said, guys, let's go ahead and get into some closing thoughts. So on the wrist, classic proportions, on the thinner side, definitely due to that removal of the automatic winding rotor. In terms of model variants, there's a white dial, as you see here, as well as a black dial option, and then tons of different strap choices as well, which do help mix things up. In terms of comparable models, honestly, it's pretty tough at this price point, guys. At $1,500. I mean, of course, if you start getting into like swatch group parts, yeah, sure, there's going to be some models like, let's say, from a Tissot or Mito that are going to be pretty comparable in terms of price. But of course, this isn't going to be something very run-of-the-mill like a Tissot or a Mito. They're great watches, don't get me wrong, but of course the swatch group connection does give them access to these types of movements for much cheaper. Here you are getting the Solita variation, and it's been doing really well for me thus far within testing. For me, guys, the whole classic Panda dial style is just really wonderfully executed, and it's an extremely well-spec'd package. And I think the competitive price point is really what puts it over the edge for me. This is, to me, kind of, I feel like it really hits all the same marks as something like a Bell & Ross, right? It has the classic looks without being a direct homage. It reminds you of a lot of other watches that you love, while not impersonating any of them. But I think, of course, the pricing is more grounded in reality than a Bell & Ross. I think nobody, you know, I mean, aside from, you know, maybe people who aren't really into watches, are paying full retail for Bell & Ross. They're pretty much known to be marked down pretty dramatically within either gray market or even directly from authorized dealers before you purchase, just because that's just kind of their pricing structure and strategy. Here, though, you're going to be able to get this direct from the brand owners and the team, you know, at $1,500. Mechanical chronograph, sapphire, rockin' BGW9 loom, you know, very classic layouts in terms of that bicompax layout. Also going to be manual wind, which is another nice feature. And, you know, I'm a big fan of automatics, but the fact that you're going to be able to cut some thickness on here, I think it's smart. I think they definitely did some special things with this one. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.